I think we can start. So the talk that I will present you is an overview of the available tools in terms of web accessibility testing and development, and it's an attempt to introduce a better development strategy in our organizations using those tools. But first, again, to introduce myself, my name is Radimir. I'm a front-end engineer who really loves to speak about web performance, accessibility, inclusive design, and interface animations. I'm really passionate about those topics, so yeah, if you really want to chat about that, just approach me. You can find me with this with the Radibit handler on all of these places. And as Luca started with what is web accessibility, and he defined it in his presentation very well, I would like to do the same, just to again repeat this thing. When we talk about web accessibility, it's the degree, and I'm using here a quote from Laura Kalbeck in her excellent book, Accessibility for Everyone. She is defining there that web accessibility is the degree to which a website is accessible as many people as possible. So it's basically dropping as much as barriers as possible to access the content that we're creating. I highly recommend the book, by the way. And it's not about few people, because recent studies show that 1 on every 5 persons in the European Union actually are experiencing some kind of a impairment or some kind of a disability. So web accessibility helps people with physical, with mental, with hearing challenges, with vision problems to perceive our content, to digest our content. So it's really about a big group of people. But it's not only about people with disabilities. It's also about people with low literacy, or people that are starting to learn new language, for example. And not only that, it's also about every one of us, because we have this notion of separating people separating people in groups like us and them. And this mindset is really wrong when we're approaching topics like web accessibility, because with the aging, our vision might not be so sharp as our 20s. Our hearing capabilities will not be the same when we reach 80s or 90s in our lifetime. So it would be nice to still have access to our favorite apps, our favorite websites, even on that stage of our life. So I'm repeating this slide. It was part of Luca's talks as well, but I really like what the Microsoft team did last year. They published this case study around the inclusive design and the importance of inclusive design, and they created this persona spectrum, providing this metric of a different type of disabilities across the different types of a way that people are experiencing these disabilities, like permanent, temporary, or situational. And a common example might be just walking down the street and using our smartphone, looking at our smartphone, and then we're in this situational group of people. Or it might be an arm injury that we have as a part of our temporary. And by the way, the latter might be because of the former, just walking the streets and then the arm injury. So yeah, be careful with that. Also, speaking of the inclusive design team at Microsoft, I really like this quote by Kate Holmes. She's the director of the inclusive design team at Microsoft, and she says that if there is no such thing as a normal human being, if there is no normal, there is no edge cases, just diverse people changing from one moment to the next one. And I really resonate with this quote, because I believe we should not do the separation of groups. It should be for everyone. And there is also this common notion, this common mindset again, that in the design and development teams, that we have this 80-20 rule, meaning that we are designing and developing for the so-called average user, and we're having this 20% for the extra work that potentially we're going to do later. And we really need to prevent those type of situations happening in our organization and make inclusive design a norm, in my opinion. To sum it up, web accessibility should be an integral part of an ethical and empathetic development process. It's, as Lucas mentioned in his presentation, everyone are involved here. That's product managers, designers, web developers, QA people, business owners, everyone in the organizations. And it's need to be embedded in the development process, not considered as an extra. So from that point in the presentation, I will cover tools separated, organized in different groups. And there will be a lot of links that actually you can find on the final two slides where I have all the resources listed. So afterwards I share the presentation, you can find all the resources listed there. So accessibility tooling, that's our opportunity to automate processes, to improve the quality of web accessibility on our web products. And the first group of tools is about the color and the contrast. It will be about the color and the contrast, and the first tool is called Color Oracle, and that's probably the oldest tool that I know in terms of simulating a color blindness. And it's a really nice tool. It's a free open source cross-platform tool that is doing really a straightforward job of providing filter on top of all of your windows and simulate the three most common color deficiencies. As you can see on the following three slides, you can have a comparison from the original image. And by the way, that's my only connection with the intro, nothing more. And yeah, you can see on the right hand side we have the original image, and on the left side we have the first one, the first color deficiency, which is the green color deficiency. And this is the way how Color Oracle will present this, will like transform this image of providing this filter on top of the window. And also they have this nice informational tooltip on window that you can drag and move around, and it gives you like basic information about the color deficiency here. Like for example, with the green color, we have about 5% of males experiencing this, and that's the most common color deficiency. The next one is the red color. It's a little bit more rare, 2.5% of males. And when we speak about males here, it's because males are actually experiencing more problems with color. Like they can experience more color problems in comparison to females, and that's because of the X chromosomes, if I'm not mistaken, which is just part of the genome. And the third one is the blue color deficiency, that's the rarest one. A small amount of people are experiencing this, but you can still see, or maybe it's not that visible enough, but you can still have the reference of the change of the colors. And when I'm giving this example with these colorful images, actually the point here is that we should not rely on colors only. And that's important in our products when we're creating charts, to not use only colors but provide labels and identify this information in different ways. Just not rely only on the colors, because then people will not be able to get the full spectrum of the data that you're presenting. And continuing the topic of the colors, that's my favorite tool when we're speaking about creating a color palette. And color palette in the notion of getting safe colors, and also test the color contrast. And Colorable is available also as an NPM module, so you can hook it up to your project and do the checks programmatically or part of a test suite that you have. It's a really nice product. They have this metrics demo that you can tweak all of these colors, contrast, immediately see the output of the web content accessibility guidelines standards, like AA or AAA, depending on the chosen colors. So it's a really quick way to create like a wide variety of colors and check them quickly. The other one is Color Safe, which is a simplified version of Colorable. I like it because it's really straightforward. You can just pick up a text paragraph, check the color contrast. You still see on the top right corner the goal ratio, so you can define whether you want to have a AA or AAA standard. You can have the contrast ratio as well available there, and again you can select several colors and create a color palette out of this. And also recently in version 65, I believe, of Chrome, we have this color picker, enhanced version of the color picker with the contrast ratio. So now this is available of part of the Chrome DevTools, and with this we can quickly select the color. We can see the contrast ratio. Once you expand that, you can see also the different web content accessibility guideline standards, and you can quickly change the color and see the difference. But also, it's not about development tools, it's also about design tools. And we have this popular color contrast sketch plugin where you can check the contrast ratio of multiple layers provided on top of each other, which is a common practice with the design tools. And then on the bottom, you can see again the standards and whether your colors are failing or not. So you can quickly check that with the color contrast sketch plugin too. And the next topic is readability. I think most of the time, including myself, we're really underestimating the complexity of the content that we are providing, the complexity of the way how we are communicating content over the web. And I think it's really important to consider a plain language and short sentences that can improve considerably the accessibility of our content. And more people will be able to read and understand easier the meaning of our writings and get sense of what actually we're delivering as a message. Also, this will help a lot for dyslexic people and people again with low literacy or groups that are just starting learning a language, a new language, so non-native speakers as well. A tool that can help here, even though it's a really again, like old design, but it's a really useful tool. The reason for that is because there you can see on, it's really tiny font, but I have an XY with the Zoom version. So we have a lot of metrics here, and the tool is called Readability Analyzer. It works like this. You're giving a text paragraph, and then it calculates automatically the scores, the complexity of this paragraph, according to several sets of metrics. And these type of metrics are, for example, flash reading ease, which uses the numbers of sentences and syllables. And syllable is a content. Yeah. Oh, okay. That's for English only. Yeah. That's a good one. I don't have an, to be honest. Yeah. Yeah. Even though some of these metrics are connected with the educational grade system, so it really depends also on each country and how their educational system is structured. But the one that I mentioned, flash reading ease, probably it's applicable for different types of languages because it uses just the number of sentences and again these syllables, which are the blocks. Imagine like a Tetris box, Tetris pieces that are combined and they create a word. And syllables are measurement system for the complexity of a word, depending on how many of these blocks are actually into that word. So flash reading ease is one metric that combines those two and get a score at the end. Another one is a Gunning Fox scale, which is the percentage of words that are using 3 or more of these syllables, so really complex words, and it gets a feedback on the complexity of these words here. And as you can see on the example, probably that's by the way one sentence, and part of this paragraph I picked up. And by the way, I think this is from the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, so maybe there's a room for improvement there in terms of the complexity. But the idea is that you can see a lot of long words here, a lot of complex words, and again, that's one sentence. So people really need to read the whole thing to get a sense of the actual meaning of this paragraph. And you can see the flash reading is 26. What does it mean? It's that this flash reading is metric goes from 0 to 100, and then wherever we have a smaller number here, meaning that we have a really complex piece of text. And the aim, the goal, is actually to achieve score between 50 and 60, because this is a plain language. To help with that scenario, we can use something that the plain language Gov website publish. It's a simple word and phrases. Again, that's for English. That's English words and phrases, but that's common words and phrases that you can have the equivalent of a simple version. Also, they're available on Wikipedia as well. They have a huge list of equivalents there. And just to wrap up the topic about readability, I will recommend this amazing talk by Ashley Bishop, and she did a great job. I watched it recently, like a couple of weeks ago, and she explained really well how to improve the readability, how actually these syllables works, why they're important in terms of getting the complexity of a word, and why it's okay to use contractions. And by contractions, we're referring to these shorter forms of two words that are combined. For example, I have, and then we can really truncate that word to truncate that phrase to I''ve. So that's contractions, and this is something that native speakers are using like by default. I mean, it's not something that they're thinking about, but it really simplifies the whole idea of how people are reading the text and getting the meaning. Because using longer versions, it increases the complexity. So the talk is called Embracing Plain Language for Better Accessibility by Ashley Bishop. The link is there. It will be available on the WASTIL slides as well, so you can check it out. So the next topic is screen readers. And for the screen readers, that's, I think, one of the most essential things we can do in terms of testing web accessibility, because screen readers can easily simulate for us the way how people with different types of disabilities are perceiving the web content, and also not only people with disabilities again, but people in temporal or situational type of impairment. And they're essential when it comes to accessibility tests, also for improving the experience for a lot of groups of people. I will focus on the three most popular choices here. The first one is the Job Access with Speech one, called JAWS, created by Freedom Scientific. It's a proprietary screen reader explicitly for focus on Windows platform, and it can be installed on desktop and run it from the USB drive as well, so it's portable, but it's paid, required a license, and officially supports Firefox and Internet Explorer. The next one is the NVDA. That's the Non-Visual Desktop Access screen reader. It's a free open source screen reader for Windows created by NVAccess, and it can be installed again on desktop, run it from a portable device, and officially supports Chrome, Firefox, and Internet Explorer. And for this one, I have a demo, which is a short snippet from the Rob Dodson Accessibility Cast, which is a really amazing piece of content that Rob Dodson is regularly providing on YouTube. And in this section, he just focused on the basics of NVDA, how people can navigate and how they can use the basic keyboard shortcuts. So yeah, it was a short demo of how NVDA works. That's a screen reader, and yeah, again, check the Rob Dodson Accessibility Cast really nice. Really highly recommend this content. And the final one is VoiceOver, which is the integrated screen reader on macOS and iOS devices. That's part of the Apple ecosystem. You can turn the VoiceOver on your Mac with Command F5, and it officially supports Safari. So to illustrate just the basic navigation with VoiceOver, I created a short demo. The point that I would like to highlight is that aside from navigating with a tab and pressing Command arrow keys to move back and forth between the links and the browser history, there is this VoiceOver special keyboard shortcut, Control and Option keys, which with the modifier can also improve in a similar way as NVDA the navigation for the users. So this VoiceOver special command plus Command H can navigate to the next heading. VoiceOver plus Command plus G can move to the next graphic piece. So this is the way how we can test quickly the accessibility in terms of screen readers for our website, and that was VoiceOver. Leonie Watson, who is a A11y advisory board member, published an amazing resource on the commands and all these keyboard shortcuts for all the three common screen readers technologies. So that's the blog post. Highly recommended in terms of get all these keyboard shortcuts for quick and easy tests with the screen readers. So the next topic is the accessibility audit, and here I prepared several tools that I found really, first of all, really useful in my practice, but also there are big communities behind some of them, so you can expect a lot of like support also, and different features that have been added throughout the time. So the first one is called X, and it's accessibility checker that helps to find to diagnose web pages or web applications by using one of these Chrome extensions, and these using one of these browser extensions, Chrome and Firefox, and the technology powering those browser extensions, it's called X Core, which is actually it's a UI testing engine which can be used separately in different types of tools, different types of environments. And you can see even later in the other tools part of this category that some of them actually use X Core behind the scene. Also, it's available as an NPM module, so it can be part of a functional test suite. And to illustrate quickly how this works, I prepared just a short demo. So click the Analyze button. By the way, once you install the Chrome extension or Firefox extension, it will be available part of your developer tools, and then you can find it as a separate tab. You can press the Analyze button. It will generate a report with all the warnings, errors, and then you can navigate between those errors, get more information about this, and also a way how you can fix it. So the solution tool. It's a really powerful tool. And speaking of tools that actually use X for their accessibility checks, that's SonarWell. It's a linting tool with a user interface that you can scan selected URL, and it can generate information about accessibility, performance, security, and progressive web apps as well, and also show you a report of common errors and warnings. So an example report generated by SonarWell looks like this. And that's just a quick demo of how you can navigate through the report. You can expand the different fields, categories. You can get more information. That's really nice, actually. they provided these reference links, so you can learn more about these different topics they're checking there. Unfortunately, I noticed that speaking of accessibility tests, SonarWell uses Axe Core behind the scene, but seems that they're not generating the same amount of warnings and errors if you use directly Axe, which is kind of unfortunate. And also, they have some problems with inconsistency in terms of the final results. Like some of the results are failing, and you need to rerun the test again. So if you're interested only about accessibility testing, then probably I would recommend still going to Axe when I compare those two tools. But the next one, which is my go-to audit tool for quickly getting information on overall information about the website or the web app, is called Whitehouse. It's an open source tool supported by the Google community, and it gives automated checks for web pages, for web performance, for accessibility, for security and SEO. The cool part is that you can select whatever type of information you want to generate at the end, and then it's also part of the Chrome DevTools. It's highly integrated into the platform, and a simple report generated by Whitehouse looks like this. It gives again option to traverse over all of the results, and they have also this learn more link that I found really helpful throughout the test, so you can get to the pages, learn more, get more information about these different topics, and then verify the final results and what area you would like to improve in your application at the end. So that's a sample report generated by Whitehouse. So the next topic is the automated testing, and the first tool that I would like to highlight here, it's called Pally. There is a really active community behind this tool. I think it's one of the best tools in terms of automated accessibility testing. It runs a HTML code sniffer from the command line from programmatic accessibility reports, but also they created different services using the core module. So they have a command line interface that I will show a demo in a second. They also have a command line interface specifically targeted to the continuous integration setups. Also, they have a web service, and they have a dashboard. So a lot of integrational points with Pally. A demo using a Pally from the command line looks like this. You're installing it as an npm global module, or you can use it with npx if you're on a higher version of npm and Node. And then it generates, you can provide a lot of configuration points. For example, here I'm testing a web URL with according to the web content accessibility guidelines for the AA standard, and it generates a bunch of errors and warnings. The interesting point was that when I compared those reports to the X, it was pretty much one-to-one. So the both tools are working really good in terms of analyzing the web pages. But the cool part here is that it provides a really nice integrational opportunities. One of those, speaking of integrational opportunities using Pally, there is this tool called Koali, which is a desktop accessibility app powered by Pally, and it generates a nice HTML report. So it's basically a Pally, but the graphical interface for this tool. And a report running Koali looks like this. You can provide the web URL, you can select whether you want to have the errors, warnings, or the notes. Then you can run the report. It gives you a nice HTML overview of the results. And then again, you can go and check what is going on with the accessibility testing, the results. The next tool, it's from the PayPal team, created by the PayPal team, called Automated Accessibility Testing Tool. And again, it's a highly configurable tool, providing an HTML code sniffer, X, Chrome developer tools, and it again uses, it can be highly configurable. There is an npm module. You can attach it to different types of third-party services or tools. But I noticed that the development is not that active in comparison, for example, to Pali, even though the tool is really like a really comprehensive tool in terms of automated accessibility testing. The interesting part is that they have also options to run this tool behind a firewall or HTTPS authentication, so you can basically really hook it up to a testing infrastructure and run your test together with AATT and have the results as part of your continuous integration setup. Speaking of that, they have a plugin for Nemo.js, which is a PayPal tool again. That's a PayPal product for testing. It's a testing framework created by the PayPal team, and they have a plugin which can be combined, which can combine AATT with Nemo.js, and then you have a really nice setup in terms of automating, checking automatically the available potential issues with your web pages or web products. And finally, I have this accessibility.js, which is from created by the GitHub team. It helps to configure a client-side script that can scan and report inaccessible elements in your HTML document. And for example, we can hook it up to the DOM content world event, for callback function, and then get the results, or provide some warning mechanism on the client side whenever whenever we detect a problem. It's a really straightforward tool, I should say. Really easy to jump in and use it immediately, and again, can be part of an automated process on the development environment, for example. And then I have this group of more resources here, because it's not only about tools. There are several web pages that are combining a lot of useful resources in terms of improving the web accessibility, and speaking of testing and development especially. And this one that Lucas mentioned in his presentation, called Funkify, it's an amazing tool. There is a really active development behind this tool. They're improving the versions significantly from one to another. It's created by AccessWeb, and it helps to experience web and interface throughout the eyes of different sets of personas. And to visualize that, I have this demo here, just going throughout several of these personas. So for example, we can see how a person with a visual impairment looks at our page and how they're perceiving it. But the interesting part for me, and that's really nice feature, I believe, I can highlight here, is that they name all of these personas. So basically, they by testing, you really have this empathetic feeling, because you have this Buri Bianca, dyslexia Dani, so you have like a person associated with the selected impairment, the selected disability. But it's not it's not only about disabilities. Probably you saw that there is a check where you can see, for example, how your web page would look like on a direct sunlight, and how is the contrast ratio at that point, and you can tweak all the changes. They also have a simulator for different color disabilities, and it's a great tool. It's available as a Chrome extension, and I think it's still in this beta version, because I guess they would like to have like a basic version. Then you can see they have this premium tab, which is not activated at the moment, but they're giving a lot of they're having a lot of development going on there. So I'm really looking forward for this too in the upcoming months. And speaking of general tools, also I would like to mention a couple of bookmarklets. The first one is Accessibility CSS, or ALEX, as they're stating on their website. And it's basically a CSS file, a bookmarklet that you can configure and generate. Probably you can see that on the left side of the screenshot. So you can generate your custom version, drag and drop it in the bookmark area of your browser, and then you can activate it on a selected website, which will highlight warnings, errors, potential problems, diagnose potential problems in your HTML document. So it's a really nice tool for quick checks. It can be it's also part of there are mixins that basically can be integrated directly into your CSS style sheet. So it's not only a bookmarklet, but it can be used as a separate CSS file, and again part of maybe a development environment. And if you feel a little bit more adventurous, then there is this Revenge CSS by Hayden Pickering. It's really into your eye when you use this bookmarklet. The idea is really to highlight the problems, the potential problems. I believe the the accessibility.css, it's a little bit more comprehensive in terms of features that they included into their bookmarklet. But Revenge CSS, it's really into the category of if you want to prank a little bit your teammates, because it's using Comic Sans to highlight the problems, and it's really this bold red color. So it really can, detect the issues on the page. Next is this document builder called Copper. And the interesting point for this product is that, for this web application, is that it's a document builder created with accessibility in mind. It can generate a really nice representation of, for example, a pattern library, especially if it's an inclusive design pattern library. And it gives it has some really nice features like an accessible PDF generator, so you can generate out of your documentation an accessible PDF file. It provides an opportunity to define live demos, and the really cool feature that I really like is that you can put in your code snippets a reference to the web content accessibility guidelines, and specifically which section of the guidelines, depending on the component. It's also a progressive web app, so it works off. The offline experience is really good as well. And the next two that also was part of Luca's presentation, but that's absolutely there is no way to not speaking of accessibility and not mentioning WebAIM, because it's a wonderful resource. It's a community effort of combining a lot of tutorials, checklists, tools as well. For example, before I jumped into the X and White House accessibility audit tools, I was using Wave. So Wave is created by the WebAIM team. Also, they have simulation tools, and as I said, different checklists for the web content accessibility guidelines, and also for the US legislations, the section 508. And speaking of inclusive design, that's probably the best resource out there. That's created by Hayden Pickering, and it's a collection of inclusive components explained in a blog post by providing the alternative, or like the way how you can create the inclusive components of equivalents of common interfaces, common interface components. And it's created with inclusive design in mind, and you can find a lot of these common components created with inclusivity in mind there. So that's a really nice resource in terms of inclusive design. And that was pretty much it in terms of the tools. I would really like to wrap it up with inspirational quote by Tim Berners-Lee, who says that the power of the web is in the universality, and access by everyone regardless of disability is an essential aspect. So yeah, and that's the two slides. These are the two slides that I mentioned, collecting all the resources here that you can find. So that's it pretty much from my side. Thank you.